Now for the one and only shotgun in Resident Evil Outbreak. So it's just titled Shotgun. But first, let's go over its ammo. Shotgun rounds. 12 gauge shotgun shells. Alright, generic enough. It's basically all you need to know. But instead of the usual green box, it's a black box. Now let's go over the actual shotgun. A gun which can scatter bullets over a large area. Alright, pretty accurate description if I do say so myself. And a very recognizable shotgun, we have seen it multiple times. That is clearly the Franchi Spas 12, which we have seen in Resident Evil Survivor, Code Veronica X, Survivor 2 Code Veronica, and Resident Evil Dead Aim. That was the last time we've seen it, just in the last game. And once again, of course, it is missing its folding stock, something we haven't seen since Survivor. Here's a list of all the locations for the shotgun. There are quite a few for a shotgun, but only 2 of them are fixed in all difficulties. One is in the Outbreak scenario on the slope along the canal. You get it off the body of Officer Raymond. Now, in easy, normal, and hard, it comes loaded with a full 7 shotgun shells, but in very hard, it only has 4. Now, the other fixed location for a shotgun is in the below freezing point scenario, in the emergency passage on the B5F level of the underground. It is on the floor to the right of the northern vent, and in all difficulties, it comes loaded with a full 7 shotgun shells. Now, here's the shotgun being equipped in-game by all the characters. Can't go wrong with the Spas 12, looking as beautiful as ever. Alright, let's go ahead and test this baby out. So, considering the firepower finally went up a little bit in this showcase, we're finally gonna break away from zombies. I am going to test the shotgun on the usual enemies I love to test shotguns on, the Hunter. In this game's case, the Hunter R. Alright, took 2 shotgun shells to defeat a Hunter at close range, and it causes 600 damage per shot. Now, the shotgun, you know how I roll with them. I don't test them at any other ranges, so I'm gonna skip out on giving you the medium and long range statistics. So that is gonna conclude the shotgun. Shit. Alright, taking the firepower up quite a bit into my favorite weapon category, the Magnum class weapons. First one we got is the Magnum Handgun. A very huge handgun. It uses 50 Action Express rounds. Alright, so that is accurate to this weapon because as you can clearly see, it is a Desert Eagle of sorts. The specific model, the Mark 19. Now, regardless of the actual model of Desert Eagle, we of course have seen the Desert Eagle a few times in Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 0, in part at least, and last time was Resident Evil Dead Aim. Now, the Magnum Handgun can only be found in the below freezing point scenario, but in all difficulties. However, just like the submachine gun, it can only be acquired by a specific character. In this case, Yoko. Of course, once she acquires it, she could give it to other characters, so I will be able to show it with both sexes. But the actual location is in the B5F Area B passage. You have to speak to the survivor sitting next to the vent, and he will eventually drop this. Now, on easy mode, it comes fully loaded with 7 rounds. On normal mode, only 5 rounds. In hard mode, it only has 3 rounds. And finally, in very hard mode, it only has 1 Magnum round. Now here's the Magnum Handgun in-game being equipped by all characters. Once again, below freezing point's hub doesn't do it justice in the lighting department, because this is probably the whitest Desert Eagle we've ever seen so far in the series. And let's get the extreme close-up angle of the Magnum Handgun with David here. Oh, it looks so nice, and this is a bulky-looking Desert Eagle, I have to say. So let's go ahead and test it out. And of course, Seiya and dying animation with both sexes. It definitely is a really large handgun. Unfortunately, there is no ammo provided in this game for this Magnum Handgun. So, I'm gonna go ahead and get straight to the enemy testing. Now, this is way too powerful for a zombie, but of course, after the regular enemy testing, I will take it to a zombie's head. For now, since it's only in this scenario, I will test it on a hunter, but if it proves too powerful, then there's really one other enemy I can think of, and that's the G Adult, which is the final boss of this scenario. Alright, so 2 shots with the Magnum Handgun against a hunter. It survived 1 shot, so we won't need to test it on any higher enemies after all. But at close range, does a damage of 900 flat. Medium range, it appears to do 810 damage. And 720 at far range. So, being a Magnum, it's pretty powerful across all ranges. Not a huge difference between all of them, from 900 down to 720. That's a pretty narrow range for a Magnum. Alright, so that's testing the Magnum Handgun on the Hunter R. Now, of course, being a Magnum, gotta do my new Magnum tradition of testing all Magnums on a standard zombie to see the explosive critical headshot. So, of course, I'm gonna perform it with Alyssa, who has the take pot shot, and take it against a zombie. Headshot. Alright, that is ultimately gonna conclude the Magnum Handgun. Alright, now for the next and last Magnum, the Magnum Revolver. An M29 44 Magnum. It uses 44 Magnum rounds. And unlike the Desert Eagle, this one does have its own ammo, so let's go over it real quick. The Magnum Revolver rounds. 44 Magnum rounds. They are used for a Magnum Revolver. So, the model of the gun is right there in the description. This is an M29, specifically a Smith & Wesson Model 29. This is its debut in the series. Now, the Magnum Revolver is exclusive to the Outbreak scenario. And as you can see, it only has 2 possible locations, one of which is fixed in all difficulties except very hard mode, which doesn't have the Magnum Revolver at all. That location is behind the residential area in Town 2, in the open window on the steps leading up towards the footbridge. And in all 3 difficulties, it comes loaded with a full 6 Magnum Revolver rounds. Now here's the Magnum Revolver being equipped by all the characters. This one is really beautiful. And let's get one last extreme close-up of this baby. I am foaming at the mouth right now. Of course, this is giving me major Dirty Harry vibes, considering he's holding it one-handed, and it is the same exact Magnum Revolver that Clint Eastwood uses in the film Dirty Harry. Probably the most popular reference I can think of. I'm so excited. Let's test this baby out. And let's see the reload. That is one of the most realistic reloads I've seen of a revolver so far in the series. She loaded all 6 individual rounds. While you didn't see the cylinder rotating, at least it was the right amount. Right, this is an absolute powerhouse, and it's rather unfortunate that the Outbreak scenario is the only scenario this shows up in. There's no available enemy that could withstand this. You'd think the Scissortail is an adequate enemy to test against, but the problem is they only show up in hard and very hard mode, and you don't get a Magnum Revolver in time to test it against them, because you're already past the point of no return. And zombies don't even get tough enough to withstand Magnum rounds, at least at close and medium ranges. They may be able to withstand a long-range shot, so I'll go ahead and still do the tests, but most of this is going to be redundant. So at close and medium ranges, obviously, zombies are just going to keep falling dead. One zombie managed to survive a far-range shot. It's the highest rated zombie in this map, the 820 health pool. They're down to 20, so far range, it only deals 800 damage. As for mid and close range, we know it's just going to be too powerful for these zombies. So I took the liberty of going to the online weapon wiki, and it lists that the Magnum Revolver deals 1100 at close range. This was likely gathered from Outbreak File 2, since it's literally impossible to get those figures in Outbreak 1, unless you got some sort of secret developer tool that I'm unaware of. It doesn't list what it does at mid-range, but it's somewhere between 800 and 1100. Right in the middle is 950. That just might be the statistic for mid-range. Anyway, now let's see escape maneuvers with the Magnum Revolver. And now let's see the ultimate explosive headshot for Resident Evil Outbreak, with Kevin doing a pot shot at close range against an easy mode zombie in a window. Headshot. Now, according to the online wiki, Alyssa's potshot only doubles the damage, but Kevin's potshot quadruples it, similar to how it does with the 45 auto. That means Kevin is capable of dealing up to 4,400 damage. That is insane. There's no way to validate that here in Outbreak File 1 since there's no adequate enemy to test it on. Alrighty then. Well, that's ultimately gonna conclude the Magnum Revolver. Alright, we are reaching the horizon of this weapon showcase. We're moving into the most powerful weapons of the game, starting with the grenade launcher. The thing is, with the grenade launcher in this game, there are two kinds of ammunition, and you can only use them in two separate scenarios. So it's almost like there's two versions of the grenade launcher. One has acid rounds, as I'm looking at here, and the other one has grenade rounds, or explosive rounds. But between both of them, the description is the same. A weapon which fires grenade rounds, which isn't very descriptive at all. But let's go over the individual rounds now. First, the acid rounds. Rounds for a grenade launcher, they contain a powerful acid. And then you got the burst rounds. Rounds for a grenade launcher contains a flammable compound. Okay, but color-wise and model-wise, these are the grenade rounds we have seen many, many times in the franchise. And as for the grenade launcher itself, this is the most recognizable M79 grenade launcher, which we have seen in Resident Evil 2, in part in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Survivor, Code Veronica, Survivor 2, and in part in Gaiden. So many times, but it's been a few games since we last seen it, so it's nice to see it again. So here's a list of all the locations you could find the grenade launcher, and since the rounds are separated by scenario, I will show at least one location for each of the rounds. So for the acid rounds, there is only one location you could find it, in the Hellfire scenario, and that's in room 30 Star on the 3rd floor of the hotel. It is on the floor next to the desk in the southern room. Now, an easy it comes loaded with 7 acid rounds, and normal 5 acid rounds, and in hard only 2 acid rounds, and it is not available whatsoever in very hard mode. Now in Decisions, where it's loaded with burst rounds, there is one fixed location, and that's in the shed on the B3 floor of the university. It is on the shelves next to the door, and in all difficulties, it comes loaded with 4 burst rounds. Now here's the grenade launcher being equipped by all the characters of the game. The M79 never gets old. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems just a little smaller than previous depictions, especially the Resident Evil 2 version. So let's go ahead and test it out. First with acid rounds, since that's the earlier round. And of course I'll aim it at a wall of some sort so we can see the round effect.
Excuse me.
Now let's test the explosive.
If someone's there, help me! Help me! What? Anyone!
Help! Then stay behind.
Oh, and of course, it does stack all into the weapon like most games with a grenade launcher, just for your information. So, since we have two different rounds that are in two different scenarios, enemy testing might be a little strange for this one. So the acid rounds in the Hellfire scenario, there's probably only one enemy that's going to withstand more than one of these, and that's the final boss. So I'm going to test this on the Suspended, also known as the Regis Liquor. So 1,000 is the acid round damage. Alright, so in normal mode, it's only going to take you 3 acid rounds to defeat the Suspended. Now let's move to explosive rounds on the enemy testing grounds. And for the explosive rounds, similarly, I'm going to test on Decision's final boss, the Thanatos R. Now the Thanatos R has a health pool of 2,800, just 600 higher than the Suspended. So not a too dissimilar test here. Whoa. 1,270 damage the explosive rounds deal, apparently. I think hitting him directly in the heart is like a critical spot. So let me hit his back. Really? It's only 310? Maybe the Thanatos has a natural resilience of some sort. So yeah, if I hit him square in the heart, it causes way more damage. If you just get 3 heart shots with a grenade launcher, he's defeated just like that. So there's a little tip for you guys for when you're playing this for real. But yeah, unfortunately, there's really no other enemy that I could test a grenade launcher with explosive rounds on because all the other enemies in the scenario are all defeated in one hit. I tried. So it's really the best I could do when it comes to the explosive rounds of the grenade launcher. Of course, there is one more variation of the Tyrant that I could face, but you get the gist for the grenade launcher. Alright, that is gonna conclude the grenade launcher. Alright, now for the heaviest weapon in this showcase, the rocket launcher. A powerful rocket launcher. It launches 84mm rocket rounds. Alright, so funny it mentions the ammo because it doesn't provide you with spare ammo for it. But regardless, now this is based on the AT-4 rocket launcher, M136 AT-4, which we have seen in Resident Evil Code Veronica X and Survivor 2 Code Veronica. So the rocket launcher can only be found near the end of the Decision scenario. It is available in every difficulty mode, and it is located in the unloading passage in University Yard 1. It is inside the storage cabinet next to the scaffolding in the northeast area. It needs to be broken open in order to acquire it, though. Since you got the Thanatos to deal with, I would suggest you use a very powerful weapon like the grenade launcher or something. Once you get it open, there it is. Now here's the rocket launcher being equipped by all the characters. You have any idea how much I needed to travel and play this game just to get all of these little clips of all the characters? You better appreciate the work I'm putting into this showcase. As for the weapon itself, of course, in the upscaled resolution and HD textures, it does look amazing, and I can't wait to fire it. Alright, now let's test out this bad boy. Of course, to properly test this, I am in infinity mode. Well, didn't even hit the wall at that point. Huge explosion. Okay, so since this can only be found at the very end of the game, there's only one proper enemy to test this on, and that is the Thanatos R. Alright, so there's no worry of trying to hit his heart with the rocket launcher because it defeats him in one shot regardless. Now that's in normal mode when his health pool is 2800. I can't speak for higher difficulties if he has a higher health pool. Will he survive that one shot? I'm not sure because the rocket launcher normally only comes with one available shot. So I feel like it was designed to be a one-hitter across the board. And yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the energy to do a whole nother playthrough in very hard mode of all things, Indecisive Decisions. So you're just gonna have to discover that for yourself. Here's a stronger version of the Thanatos with 3,500 health value. Let's test it again. He still dies in one hit. Now, according to the online wiki for Resident Evil, this deals 18,000 points of damage. So it was designed to be a one and done weapon, no doubt. And yep, I cleared the scenario just like that. And unfortunately, there's no unlockable infinite rocket launcher like past Resident Evil games. So unfortunately, we're not gonna see my tradition of testing the rocket launcher on every single enemy of the game, sorry to say. So that's gonna ultimately conclude the rocket launcher. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end. Time for the final weapon of Resident Evil Outbreak, the Ampule Shooter. A compressed gas gun which fires special rounds. Alright, so yes, this is the one and only weapon that I'm placing in the special category. You would think I should have placed this maybe in the handguns based on its look, but no, it's because of the ammunition it uses and where it's placed in the game that it's getting the special treatment and being the final weapon of the game. So, we have definitely not seen anything like this before. But sure enough, it is still based on a real-life object or tool. So this is based on the Crosman 2240 air pistol. Now apparently this is supposed to have a carbon dioxide tank attached to it, which kind of makes sense when you look at the real-life model. But yeah, in-game, the ammunition it uses are the daylight serum capsules, which is what cures you of the T-virus in this game, if you take it yourself. But it could also be used to defeat the Thanatos R in the final boss fight, which I'm in now, as you can see. So the Ampule Shooter, being the final weapon of the game and only used for the final boss, has only one single location. Once again, only in the Decisions scenario, and of course in every difficulty mode. It is in the front square, University Yard 2, on the tank in the northeast corner. And here is the Ampule Shooter in game, being equipped by all characters for the last time. So we'll go ahead and load a capsule into it and test it out. So I obviously needed to employ the use of infinity mode for this to show multiple shots, but we'll test it with all characters with their aiming stance.
Come here. Idiot.
Please, don't come any closer.
And of course, the danger status stances.
What the hell is that? Hey there. You, give me a hand. I need your help.
And then we'll go straight to testing it on the Thanatos R, the only thing you can test it on. Let's get a nice angle and shoot him point blank. Yep, he instantly went down, and the statistical damage value for this thing is maximum. I don't think I could put a figure on it. Considering the rocket launcher is 18,000, I'm just gonna say this is 99,999. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is gonna conclude the Ampule Shooter. And that, ladies and gentlemen, ultimately concludes my massive, dragged out weapon showcase of Resident Evil Outbreak. This has been a really crazy journey and one tedious process. I knew it was going to be before I even started it, and it sure as hell was all the way through. Despite all of the updates I was giving you guys, I was feeling a little down at some points during the production of this video. But we finally reached the end, and I am confident about the future for Outbreak File 2 for a variety of reasons. This is sort of a blueprint or a template for Outbreak File 2, so overall, I don't think it's going to be as intimidating. I'm not saying it's not going to still take a very long time for that one to come to fruition either, but you see the complexity of these games throughout the showcase. It's just the kind of information I want to provide to you guys, it warrants it, and it's worth every single second that I put into these. So I hope you guys could really appreciate the effort I put into it. So now to mention a couple more unusable weapons that I didn't already mention in the showcase. In the very end of the last cutscene in the Outbreak scenario, you can see a Browning M2HB mounted gun on top of the tank. Pretty standard for that artillery. We also get a glimpse at a Heckler & Koch PSG-1 used by Nikolai here in the Decision scenario. He's using it against the Thanatos in order to retrieve its blood. As you see, the ammo is not bullets, rather a capsule.
Damn. Impressive. I won't underestimate it next time. It must be going to the man. Might as well set it up. Just in case.
And then we got these weapons on display in one of the rooms in the Hellfire scenario. This is in the security office. Now I took a screenshot, zoomed in, and heightened the contrast quite a bit so you could get a better look. And I turned to an associate who dabbles in firearms to identify these, and this is what he determined. Number 1 is a Webley revolver used by the English in World War I and World War II. Number 2 is a later 1800s American Colt double-action revolver, likely the Colt M1892. Number 3 is a broom-handled Mauser with parts from a full-length wood Mauser and a Hotchkiss stock. Basically a Franken gun, but it is a Mauser. Number 4 is a very recognizable gun in pop culture. That is the Walther PPK. It was used by the Nazis in World War II and is very famous for being the associated weapon of James Bond 007. And number 5 is a P08 artillery Luger, an early long barrel pistol that converts into a short personal defense weapon, sometimes issued with the MP38 snail mag. So that's it for unusable weapons that you see in the game. Now it's time to go over unused or cut weapons that didn't make it into the final build of the game. Now to show this, I'm going to only use screenshots of inventories with the item icons or descriptions available, but some of these are less developed than others and may not have a description, icon, or model at all. So some of it is going to be pretty vague. And these screenshots prove that there are ways to get these in the game, but I'm not versed enough in the hex editing or hacking community to confidently do it, nor do I want to invest any time in actually getting it, because I've spent way too long in the showcase already. And there's a decent amount of them, so I'm going to split these into subcategories as well, starting with weapons that didn't make the final cut here, but do end up in Outbreak File 2. First, you got the axe, which is a swinging melee weapon. While this didn't make the cut here in Outbreak 1, it does make an appearance in the flashback scenario of Outbreak File 2. Next, you got the Handgun GL, which is a Glock-based handgun, specifically the 3rd generation Glock 17. While cut from the final build of Outbreak 1, this appears exclusively in the Underbelly scenario of Outbreak File 2, and only in hard and very hard mode. Next, another handgun, the Handgun HP, which is based on the Browning High Power. This becomes exclusive to the Desperate Times scenario of Outbreak File number 2. Next, you got the Revolver, which is based on a Smith & Wesson Model 36 Chief Special. Now this appears in Outbreak File 2 exclusively in the Wild Things scenario, only in hard and very hard mode, similar to the Handgun GL. And finally, you got a grenade launcher with flame rounds. This appears in Outbreak File 2 exclusively in the flashback scenario. So those are the weapons you'll see in Outbreak File number 2. Now for the rest of the cut weapons that you don't see in any official capacity. Now I'm just going to glaze over these and won't provide any sort of emphasis unless there's an available screenshot of inventory icons, descriptions, or whatnot. Now starting once again on the melee side, there was supposed to be a blue and a red chemical bottle. Really interested on what these could have been. There apparently was also a weapon associated with the standard tackle that would have made enemies fall to the ground every time. Now on the firearm side, there was supposed to be an automatic handgun of sorts, have no idea what it would have been based on. For machine guns, there was a weapon called the Submachine Gun FP, which was going to be based on the P90. This would have been interesting to see, honestly. There was supposed to be a secondary assault rifle of sorts, but there's no information on it whatsoever. Now for shotguns, there's the Special Hunting Gun and its associated ammo, Special Hunting Gun rounds. And then there was another scrap shotgun that has no inventory icon, ammo whatsoever, and it's speculated that this was the shotgun that did make it into Outbreak File 2 as the Shotgun E, which is based on the well-known Remington 870. Now there are 2 more weapons that have no info on them whatsoever, but they're speculated to be sniper rifle quality. That's all I have on that. This is coming from a video that I will link and mention later, by the way. And from that same video, there was also supposed to be an explosive weapon that has the handgun animation, so a handgun rocket launcher of sorts. Next, to go over unused ammunition for existing weapons. So there are 2 extra types of grenade rounds, apparently, for the grenade launcher. One of them was fire extinguisher rounds, which are described as rounds for a grenade launcher that contain fire retardant. So I guess it was meant to put out fires, which sound perfect for the Hellfire scenario. Then the other round that was scrapped were gas rounds, reminiscent of the BOW gas rounds from Code Veronica. And finally, as evidenced from the video I mentioned, the nail gun, submachine gun, assault rifle, rocket launcher, and Ampule Shooter all have reload animations of both types, where individual rounds are loaded and a magazine or some sort of speed loading apparatus is used. So it can be assumed that there were scrapped ammo types for the aforementioned weapons. Alright, so if you want a more extensive look at these unused weapons, I'll provide a link to a video that more extensively goes over them and does the hacking required in order to show you properly. It's a great video for that stuff. Alright, now it's time to do the long-awaited tally of all of the weapons and add it to the total amount of weapons we have in the series thus far. Now, Resident Evil Outbreak has a whopping 36 weapons to add. Add that to our current amount. And we have a grand total of 148 weapons reviewed so far in the Resident Evil franchise between Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil Outbreak. Alrighty, people. I really hope you enjoyed that showcase. Again, it's been a crazy journey making it, and we're basically gonna rinse and repeat for Outbreak File 2. But a lot of easier things are gonna come about that one, I promise. But until then, this has been the Gamer Shankster, aka Shankster94. Please leave a like on the video, share it with your friends, leave a comment if you wish. Don't forget to ring the notification bell and set it to all so you can be notified as soon as I upload a brand new video. Follow me on all the social medias listed here. Shout out to Ophirgel the Fearless for being my one and only active patron on Patreon. It's always appreciated, man. And infinite thanks to evilresource.com for letting me use their resources throughout this showcase. I couldn't have made it this intricate without them. I shall see you guys in the ultimate weapon showcase of Resident Evil Outbreak File 2. Peace out. Godspeed.